This is Lama Tantrapa. Thank you for joining me for this event. Today I received the US citizenship, and I wanted to celebrate this event with you so that both of us would be able to benefit from me being in this country and from you knowing me and sharing whatever we have to share together. So I would also like to dedicate my presentation today to wounded warriors. I personally was a warrior. I've been practicing martial arts pretty much most of my life, and also served in the military and got wounded more than once. As a matter of fact, my woundedness probably what brought me to the study of Qigong and related disciplines. Even though I practiced martial arts and Qigong and meditation, looking for inner peace and releasing stress. Believe me, I've experienced a fair amount of stress in my life. As a matter of fact, if you don't know my story, I came from the former Soviet Union, which was pretty much like a one big bad neighborhood. So if you think that you grew up in a bad neighborhood, well, imagine the whole country like that. You know, all those stories about gulags, KGB, corruption, oligarchs, and Russian mafia, they're mostly true. So by the age of 25, I had more than my fair share of misadventures that most people in America probably never experienced in their entire lifetime. And if you think that you know how to handle your negative emotions and how to manage stress, I want to help you become more effective at that. What I also want to offer to you is I want to share the ways not only to manage it, but to introduce an extremely efficient way of practicing dynamic meditation that will help you address the very root cause of your stress and any anxieties and any fears or depression you may experience in your life, so that you really nib them in the bud. I also want to share with you a way to empower you to manifest and live your dreams. Most people experience stress in one form or another in their lives, and in many cases the stress leads not only to feelings of frustration or anger or sadness or anxiety, but also to a variety of physical ailments ranging from back pain to stomach ulcers to heart attacks and cancer. Personally, I've experienced plenty of stress and eventually learned how to overcome my unconscious conditioning. You know, I basically had a pretty hot temper, so much so that my friends often kept asking me why I was such an asshole. As a matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, my ex-wife is on the call with us today, so she won't let me lie to you about my hot temper and also the fact that I was not always a very pleasant person to be around. Now, it was not just difficult for me to maintain healthy personal relationships. My temperament also influenced my community and business who suffered because people often were literally just running away from this hot-headed Lama that I used to be. Eventually everything just really fell apart during the Great Recession that we had a few years back. So we got divorced and went through bankruptcy. In other words, I hit the rock bottom and I had enough of it. Thankfully, all my trials and tribulations taught me, if nothing else, at least one crucial thing: resiliency. I learned how to survive and eventually how to thrive under the circumstances that most people would probably crumple under or would just go bananas. As a matter of fact, instead of getting depressed or suicidal, I really started putting a lot of effort into practicing this couple of simple and extremely effective dynamic meditations that I'm about to share with you today. And also, I want you to know that stress is not something that comes to you. It's actually what we create within ourselves. So first of all, let's explore the root causes of stress. Because if we just try to get better at managing stress, we'll be sweeping most of it under the rug. Because we will basically be trying to control the negative emotions, and often they will continue rearing their ugly head from time to time. They will cause us bouts of depression, anxiety, outrage, and the whole host of physical issues that I was talking about. So what's the root cause of stress? Well, it comes from the energy discrepancy, the dissonance between the energy that you personally identify with and the energy associated with your experience. So, since everything in this whole universe is made of energy, all your life experiences can be viewed as energy events that have certain vibration to them. If this vibration of a particular event is in resonance with your energy that you identify with at the present time, you experience a state of flow. And as long as you focus your attention on this experience that you resonate with. What does it feel like to be in the flow? Well, essentially it's the opposite of stress. It's the sense of great vitality, vibrant wellness, the sense that things are easy for you. And it manifests physiologically in the form of relaxation. You breathe easy. You don't have energy blockages in your body that stop the flow of qi from nurturing your internal organs and different parts of the body, and that obviously would lead to havoc in your health system. Instead of energy blockages, your relaxed physical body allows the qi to flow freely. And you feel that flow because when you're not struggling against it, you can actually notice the subtleties of the energy flow, and then you can literally allow the flow to guide you through your experience. Now that is something that most people aspire to manifest in their lives, this state of flow. Although we are all energy beings, we have tendency to identify with a very narrow band of the spectrum of energies available to us as human beings. And this limited bandwidth that is dictated by our upbringing, religion, education, social mores, and so on, is rather narrow for most people. All of the traumatic experience that we've got through or life events that impacted us literally restrict our availability to experience the fullness of life. It means that even if you want to experience more flow, the events, the people, or experiences that you would really resonate with are not often available. They're few and far between. Instead, you probably run into a lot of experiences or people or events that you don't resonate with as much. As a matter of fact, probably a majority of the events feel like you don't resonate with them either at all or to some degree, which obviously leads to some degree of stress. And if this limited sense of identity associated with a narrow bandwidth of energy is one of the reasons why you may suffer from stress, then another one, just as powerful, even more powerful, root cause of stress and suffering is the discrepancy between your current experience, what you experience right at the present moment, and what you wish you would be experiencing instead. A dream that you would like to live. In other words, if you're not living a dream, you're not happy and you're feeling frustration or discomfort. Well, in order to live in a dream, we need to learn how to recognize the energies that would support the experience that we want to manifest. And because we recognize the dreamlike nature of reality that we live in, we also learn to recognize that everything is made of energy. And there needs to be some energy that would support the manifestation of dreams if we want to experience them. Now, it may be our own energy, or it may be energy of other parties involved, as well as the energy of the location or place where the event is happening and the time when it's happening, the so-called zeitgeist. Even though you may not be responsible for the energies of other people, of other parties, of place and time, you are definitely responsible for your own energy that you contribute to the manifestation of the dream. And if you contribute energy that doesn't support the manifestation, then no wonder that the dream that you want to live is not easy to manifest, because the energy basically isn't available to support its manifestation, and obviously you can't experience it. So what do? Well, if you cannot control the energies of other parties and the zeitgeist and the energy of place, at least you can be in charge of your own energy, that energy that you contribute to the manifestation of the dream that you want to live. And obviously it would need to be your energy, because if somebody else contributes that energy, well, they will be experiencing that dream, not you. What energy do you contribute probably depends on what you identify with. In other words, those resources within you, the energy resources that you can contribute to the manifestation of your dream, depend on that bandwidth that we were just talking about. Right now, you're probably wondering, how could you take charge of the energy that you personally can contribute to manifesting your dreams? Well, before I share with you this particular practice, it's the second practice that I wanted to share with you and guide you through this dynamic meditation today. Let me delve a little deeper into the first practice that I wanted to mention, and it's dedicated to expanding your energetic bandwidth and also developing a totally different relationship with the experiences that you have. The thing about it is that most of our experiences have some component of discovery. We can learn a great deal from whatever life presented us. Sometimes it takes years. For some people it may take even decades, depending on how fast learners they are. They may take decades to recognize the lessons and the experiences that they had at some point in the past. So with hindsight 2020, they may look back and realize, wow, my God, that was an amazing lesson that I had then, which I used to perceive as a big problem that I had. I'm sure you've had some experiences in your life which at the moment when they were happening felt like a major problem. And a certain amount of time, maybe it took you less than years, maybe it took you just months, you looked back and you realized, wow, I really learned a great deal from that. And whatever I thought was a problem actually turned out to be a fantastic learning opportunity. Now, how long does it take to experience that kind of realization? It doesn't have to take months. It may take just weeks. If you're a really fast learner, you may be able to recognize the learning nature of your event or particular experiences that you had, even in a matter of days. Now, let's continue condensing this time lapse. It doesn't have to take even days. It may take simply hours or maybe even minutes. How about we get really serious about condensing this time gap so that it would become even smaller, maybe seconds, maybe fractions of seconds. The idea is that we literally bring it into the present time, so that in the present moment, whenever you experience something, you don't label it as a problem. Instead, you immediately recognize it as a learning opportunity, as a lesson that life provided you with, and you may be able to learn from and become wiser or stronger or somehow else better. And when you apply whatever you learned from this lesson in the future, you will be able to handle situations like this even more gracefully, with greater attentiveness or mindfulness. And that is exactly what allows you to live your life problems free. Because whatever life throws your way, you simply don't perceive it as a problem. You immediately switch to perceiving it as a learning opportunity. Now, you need to be in a learning state of consciousness in order to be able to perceive something as a learning opportunity and to learn from it. In other words, learning state of consciousness is a prerequisite for transcending the perception of things that we experience in our lives as problems. How do we get into learning state? Well, this is what in Zen is often referred to as being in a beginner's mind. How do you stay in beginner's mind even though you may be a Zen master? You literally continue keeping your mind open. And when you keep your mind open, you are paying attention rather than having an intention. Instead of figuring that you know what should be happening and you either try to make it happen the way that you want it to be, or realizing that, well, things are not happening the way they should be, the way I think they should be, therefore it's a problem and we need to either get rid of it or fix it or break through it or run away from it or go into denial and pretend it's not happening. Well, you can probably see how different these states of consciousness are. The learning state as opposed to problem state. Even when you think you're problem solving, the mere fact that you are focusing on an event and labeling it as a problem immediately adds more stress to your life because you realize that you have a problem. And most importantly, it doesn't really help you get into the learning state. So, remember the last time you were in a learning state? Or perhaps not the last, but the most profound moment in your life when you were really in a learning state of consciousness. When we were children, we were in a learning state all the time. We were learning how to learn the language, whatever the language we were learning, perhaps several languages. English, for example, is my third language, so I had to learn several languages beforehand. Russian, Ukrainian. The process of learning also entailed simple things like learning how to walk, learning how to talk, learning how to communicate with people, learning how to function in our daily lives, tying the shoelaces, brushing teeth and whatnot. And of course more complex learning processes that we had to deal with, for example, when we went to kindergarten or went to school or went to college. So in other words, as young individuals, as young people, we had to learn a great deal. As we were going through the process of learning, we perhaps also were feeling like we were accumulating knowledge. This accumulation of knowledge sometimes, in many cases, makes us feel as though we know something, and as a result of knowing, now we don't need to learn, we just need to basically apply this knowledge that we already got. Now the funny thing is that memory is state dependent, which means if you were in a certain state of consciousness when you were learning something, you will be able to tap into that memory and therefore get access to that knowledge easiest if you get into the same state of consciousness. Meaning, again, you need to be in the learning state in order to be able to really apply what you learned. That's the paradox of learning. Most people, when they learn something, then when they try to apply what they learned, they're not in the same state of consciousness. That's why application or implementation of the lessons that people received often is lacking or just outright not working. What happens? They don't know about this simple principle that memory is state dependent, and it's infinitely easier to remember something when you enter the same state of consciousness as you had at the time of learning. So if that was the learning state, you need to get back into the learning state again in order to be able to implement. How do you get into the learning state? How do you stay in that state of perpetual student? Well, if the Zen masters can stay in the beginner's mind all the time, how about we do the same thing? Because it is exactly what allows you to live your life free of problems. Now, what would it be like to live life free of problems? It would be freaking amazing. It would be like you really don't encounter any problems. Whatever you run into, you just immediately recognize that as a lesson. Now what we're going to do is we are going to practice remembering and reminding ourselves to get into the learning state. Remember the learning state that you were in perhaps when you were a child? I mentioned that perhaps the last time you were in the learning state. So imagine there is a movie about your whole life. And you can stretch the reel with the film on the ground. And you can walk up and down this reel to visit the certain episodes in your life in the past, or in the recent past, or look at the present point in time, or maybe even look at some episodes into the future, the movie about your life. And you can literally watch a movie about any particular episode in your life when you just focus your attention on that part of the film on the ground. You can zoom in and see very clearly the tiniest details of what happened. And believe it or not, your memory has these details. Even though you may not consciously remember them, on the unconscious level, you remember all of the things that you ever experienced in your life. Your memory is amazingly accurate, but not always accessible. Remember, memory is state dependent. For example, if you were a child, you experienced something that perhaps you would like to recall, but you're not in that same state that you were in when you were a child. So it's hard to recall that memory. What do? Let's use this imagery, metaphorically representing our memories about all our experiences in our lives. And I invite you to travel into the past part of that movie reel and discover the time when you were particularly in that amazing state of consciousness that I just talked about, the learning state, the state of the beginner's mind. So take a moment and visualize yourself discovering a specific episode in your life when you were learning a great deal. You may notice that if you are standing right now, like I'm standing, your alignment may change. Your body posture actually represents your state of consciousness. So if you were, for example, in a curious state, you will be in a different postural alignment as opposed to bored or sad or anxious or afraid. And there are many states that we can go through and see that each and every state manifests somatically in a physical body. So what do? We learn how to use our physical bodies as both a gauge that allows us to recognize whether or not we are in that state that we're looking for, and also as the tool, as the key that allows us to turn that particular state on. For example, if when you were a child you were, let's say, really curious, then that's why you were learning something. You were probably holding yourself differently from the way you hold now. If you were curious, you were probably trying to look for something. You were probably trying to see something or hear something or maybe smell or taste something. In other words, you were using your senses. You were using your whole body. You were not stuck in the head. If you are stuck in a head sometimes, or you know people who are stuck in their heads, that's the state of consciousness that is predominant in the modern Western society. Being stuck in a head is not only associated with thinking too much, it's also associated with a particular pattern of tension, maybe several patterns that contribute to creating tension around the neck and shoulders that blocks the flow of qi in the body. And it's not only the energy blockage, it's also communication that gets blocked. The breakdown in communication between the head and the rest of the body gets us stuck. And we usually don't get stuck in the body, we get stuck in the head. So what happens? We actually end up not being able to access a lot of resources that we have in our physical body, including the memories that would be associated with those states of consciousness that were not associated with being stuck in a head. In other words, you have to get unstuck in order to access those memories and in order to get into the learning state. How do you get unstuck? Surprisingly, and perhaps paradoxically, we learn how to exaggerate whatever holding pattern you have that keeps you stuck in the head. What do I mean by that? For instance, if you're proud, or if you were proud at some point in time and you just kind of developed a sense of self-identity that included that sense of pride, it often manifests in the physical body in the form of a holding up pattern. You can see in profile my head is kind of high. I may look down on some people, even though they may be of the same height as me, but I'm looking down just because I'm tilting my head. So it's all relative, right? I'm looking down in relation to the alignment, the axis of my head. Now what happens, it's not because I'm so proud of myself at the present moment that I'm looking down on people or I'm just holding myself up. It's just a habit of holding this tension that is associated with that state of consciousness that became a core state around which the identity was developed. So some people say, what's wrong with that? You know, I have high self-esteem. Well, for some people it may be healthier than, let's say, having low self-esteem or being really put upon or depressed. It's just another holding pattern. Neither one of them is better or worse for you, because each and every one of them has its own set of tensions in the body. And whether or not you are extending a spine, including the cervical spine, or flexing it with a tension in the abs and kind of hanging the head low, you have tension. Because the bone structure of your body isn't supporting the weight of your body anymore. So you have to compensate that lack of structural integrity by tensing up the muscles. And this muscular tension is what we call energy blockages that actually wreaks havoc in your health and also may contribute to getting stuck in the head. The neck is often affected by different holding patterns. So it's really hard to find a holding pattern of tension in the body that would not affect the neck. Why? Because it's the top of the structure. So however the bottom part of the structure is misaligned, it will affect the top of it. So what happens? We just need to understand what holding patterns we are in, and then instead of struggling against them or trying to correct them and put ourselves into a right posture, we realize that there is a more intelligent and actually counterintuitive way to achieve what we are looking to achieve. By counterintuitive, I mean it actually does the opposite of what the common sense would suggest. A lot of my students have complained to me for many years, why is it that you're teaching such amazing things, but they are contradictory to common sense, so they're so counterintuitive. And I say, well, because much of common sense is really common nonsense. Even though it may make sense from just an everyday perspective that, the shortest distance from point A to point B is a straight line between these 2 points. In order to really travel from one point to the next, sometimes we need to take a different journey. Often we have to take 1 step forward and 2 steps back, or perhaps navigate around certain obstacles that may exist between these 2 points. As a matter of fact, if we just wanted to get from point A to point B and there were no obstacles, we probably would have been there. The mere fact that we are having a hard time getting from point A to point B sometimes is because there are obstacles that we run into. Instead of banging the head against them, trying to break through, we learn to navigate, which means the journey is not going to be a straight line as the crow flies. Instead, it's going to follow a different path. Just like water, when the water flows downstream and may run into an obstacle, let's say a boulder in the middle of a stream, it's not going to just stand there beating the head against the wall. What will the water do? The water will flow around the boulder. And as a matter of fact, if the water had a voice and you asked the water, so how did you overcome this big problem? The water would probably say, what problem? Oh, that boulder? That was not a problem. It was actually a landmark that indicated to me where my path needs to turn. That was a turning point in my journey. Now, that's a totally different perspective on things, isn't it? We're learning how to recognize that the obstacles in our paths are not really problems. They are landmarks that show us where the turning points in our path might exist. And then we need to learn how to turn in the direction where the water would flow. Where would water flow? It would follow the path of least resistance. How do you know that you're following path of least resistance? You're not tense. You're not exerting too much energy. You are actually exerting less energy and actually getting more done. That's also another definition of peak performance. What we learn is how to develop this sense of relaxation in the body that is associated with the recognition that you are focusing your attention on that which you resonate with. For example, if you run into an obstacle, let's say like that water, running into the proverbial boulder in this path. You look at that boulder, if you just keep staring at the boulder and just keep labeling it as a problem and keep wishing that it wouldn't be there, that is going to create a lot of stress. That's going to basically feel like this is an encounter with a boulder. This is an event in your life when you couldn't continue your journey. But if you run into the boulder and then immediately recognize that this is an invitation to find your next path. Obviously, it's not the straight line. It's going somewhere. I wonder where it goes. So you enter the learning state of consciousness. You expanding your attention. You're not just following a one-dimensional linear path, a course of action. You're actually opening up your field of vision, and then you can start taking in more information. You start taking in more ideas about what's possible. Instead of focusing on that which is impossible at the present moment, it's impossible to continue my journey. You actually realize that you are exploring what is possible. And there may be some directions that you resonate with better and some directions that you don't resonate with as well. Guess what happens if you follow the directions that you don't resonate with as well? There is more struggle. If you don't resonate with a particular direction, just like I was talking about it a few minutes ago. You're focusing your attention on an event or a course of action that doesn't resonate with your energy, and that creates stress. It creates tension. It creates the feeling like you are going against the flow. Now, how is it working to go against the flow? We call it reaction. By definition, reaction is action against oncoming forces. So, for example, if we react to certain influences or to certain energy projections, we basically start counteracting, pushing against them, fighting against these energy projections or against the influences that we may experience in our lives. That's how we spend a lot of energy and a lot of time in life, fighting a lot and getting nowhere. What do I suggest instead? Is to pay attention to that sense of energy resonance. And then experiment. So if I go this way, how does it feel? Oh, it feels more tense. Okay, let's keep that in mind. Now, how does it feel if I go that way? Well, it feels less tense. Or maybe not perfect, but at least it's all relative. So on a scale from 1 to 100, with 100% being total flow and 1 or 0 being no flow, most of the events that you encounter in your life is not going to be a perfect match to your energy resonance or perfect mismatch. It's going to be somewhere in between. And what happens is that then we just develop a sense of relative assessment. We basically become connoisseurs of energy resonance. We develop a refined sense of feeling how much you resonate with this as compared to that. And it may be the difference of just 1 or 2 percent points. Now that's crucial skill because it literally means that you develop self-awareness. You cannot really feel how much you resonate with something if you're not aware of your own energy. Because how would you know that you resonate? And also you use your own body as the gauge, as the tool that tells you whether you resonate with something more or less. How does your body tell you? It becomes more tense when you don't resonate with something, or less tense when you resonate better. And of course, what we do is we learn how to move in the direction of resonance, which also means we become less tense. But sometimes tensing up more first is that counterintuitive approach that actually works. Because if you have some tension, for example, you may have tension in the neck, and you feel stressed. If I tell you, okay, my friend, just stop being stressed and relax your tension, you'll be like, what the hell? How am I supposed to do that? If I could do it, I would have done it a long time ago. I don't know how to relax because I don't do it consciously. You know, most people, even though nobody is doing it to them, they do it to themselves. But most people hold tension completely unconsciously, so they can't really stop doing that which they don't know that they're doing, or they don't know how to do it. So what we start with is exaggerating the existing tension. We literally check with our physical bodies, and this is a standing meditation that also includes some movement. That's why it falls under the category of dynamic meditation. We actually exaggerate our tensions. So for example, if you take a natural stance, just jump and land softly, and check where you may have some tension. Or you may even look in a mirror and observe whether or not, for example, one shoulder is higher than the other, or your head is sticking up, or maybe hanging low, or you may feel like your head is cocked sideways or crooked. What happens? Whatever you observe, whatever tensions you may feel in your body, or you notice them in your mirror image, The idea is not to try to stop doing that. Because if you could stop doing this, for example, cocking the head slightly to the side, you would straighten it out. But guess what? You would straighten it out not by relaxing these muscles. You would most likely straighten out by sending signals to the muscles on the other side of the neck to contract. Because there is no signal of relaxation that central nervous system can send to muscles. There's only more signals of contraction or fewer signals of contraction. And if you're not conscious as to how you are tensing up the muscles of the neck, for example, on one side of your neck, you can't relax those muscles. So then you would straighten up your neck, trying to be in alignment. But you would end up with twice as much tension on one side and on the other side. Now, there's no greater health in that. It's actually being more stuck in the head, having more energy blockages around your neck. What do I suggest instead? Instead, I suggest exaggerating the existing holding pattern. So, for example, if you feel like your head is slightly cocked to the side, or one shoulder is higher than the other, or you may feel like you have some tension in the back of the neck and around the occiput, or you may feel tension in the muscles on the front of the neck, whatever tension you may notice. It doesn't have to be in the neck. It can be shoulders, it can be chest, it can be stomach, it can be your back, upper back, lower back, hips, pelvis, legs, arms, anything. Wherever you notice the tensions, and of course it's not going to be just isolated tension in one part of the body, because they all play together. So the mere fact that there is some misalignment of the head usually means that the whole spine is out of alignment. Cervical spine, which is the part of the spine that constitutes the neck, the bones of the neck, is just a part of the whole spine. So if cervical spine is out of alignment, the whole spine is not aligned. And we start looking at how can we exaggerate this misalignment first. Now, it's kind of a counterintuitive part. We literally do the reverse psychology type of thing with our bodies. We say, oh, there is some tension somewhere. Let's see how I can create a tad more tension. Not a lot, because if you create more tension where there is already a lot, you are going to cause spasm in your muscles. You're going to cause yourself too much pain, and so you will basically be torturing yourself. I don't suggest torturing you. I suggest that you observe where there is tension and then simply exaggerate it by just a few percent points. To the degree when you start feeling like, okay, this is uncomfortable, so you find that edge of the comfort zone. Remember, the edge of the comfort zone is basically like the edge of the boulder. When the water arrives to the boulder, that's the end of its comfort zone. What does it do? Instead of beating the head against the wall or running away from the edge of the comfort zone, the water actually will start flowing along the edge. And that's what we're learning. So when you find the edge of your comfort zone, for example, you cock the head and you feel, oh, yeah, there is some discomfort there. Then you start moving very slowly and gently along the edge of your comfort zone. Not to exaggerate tension beyond a certain limit, which will push you over the edge, but rather to walk the fine line where there is balance between comfort and discomfort. And as you're walking this line, you notice that the whole dynamic of movement radically changes. It's no longer a linear start-stop movement, either going across the edge of the comfort zone and pushing yourself over the edge, which is what most people do when they try to achieve a dream, for example. Dreams and aspirations are usually outside of our comfort zones. If they were within our comfort zones, we would probably be living our dreams a long time ago. But the reason why we haven't manifested some of our dreams is because they're beyond the edges of our comfort zone. When we arrive to the edge, we learn to do something radically different from what most people tend to do when they arrive to the edge of the comfort zone. Most people try to take a leap, or try to break through, or try to push themselves over the edge, hoping that they would get to that dream that is outside of the edge of the comfort zone. Well, some people may achieve it, but 99.9% of human population of planet Earth doesn't get to the dream. As a matter of fact, they hurt themselves because they push themselves over the edge of the comfort zone. Then they feel pain and discomfort, and they retract, they run away from that pain, basically go back into the comfort zone to recuperate. And then they feel dissatisfied. Wow, I made this attempt, I tried it, but I didn't get to my dream, and I'm not happy where I'm at. You know, the grass is always greener on the other side, so let's try it again. I'm going to take a running start, and I'm going to leap even harder and further. Maybe I will get there. Well, most people don't. Again, they hurt themselves, they cause themselves more stress and grief and suffering, and then they run away from it, go back into the comfort zone to recuperate and lick their wounds. And then they repeat the same cycle again. That's the reason why so many people literally live through the series of cyclical crises in their lives. Whether it's a health crisis, a relationship crisis, environmental crisis, economic crisis, you name it. That is how most people operate. Now, what I'm sharing with you today is a radically different way of functioning. Instead of trying to leap over the edge of the comfort zone to get to the dream that you want to achieve, we want to learn how to move along the edge, just like that water flowing around the boulder. Eventually it will go down the slope. It just needs to be patient. And as you move along the edge of your comfort zone, for example, in terms of exaggerating your holding pattern, you may discover that what used to be uncomfortable just a few seconds or a minute ago doesn't feel uncomfortable anymore. As a matter of fact, you become much more aware of how you are tensing up. You actually are doing it consciously. And you can stop doing it because you now know how you're doing it. Remember, since you couldn't stop doing that tension when it was unconscious. And most people hold unconscious tension. Nobody wants to hold tension consciously. That unconscious tension was impossible to undo consciously, because we don't know how to stop doing that which we don't know that we're doing. But if you do it consciously, then you take charge of your own experience. You take charge of your own tension. Then you realize that you can modulate the degree of tension. You can send more signals of contraction to these muscles that are tensing up, or fewer signals. And when you send fewer signals, what do muscles do? Well, they start relaxing. When they start relaxing, they start expanding or lengthening. The movement occurs. If tension is frozen movement, when you release tension, the movement starts thawing out or starts flowing again. So what happens here is that you may start feeling like, wow, my whole body suddenly starts moving in an unpredictable and spontaneous manner. And you may feel some adjustments of the spine. See, it's a chiropractic adjustment that is done on your own without somebody doing it to you according to their paradigm of thinking of how you should be. Instead, you actually allow what's natural within you to unfold spontaneously. And that is how we develop the ability to move through tension and to explore our states of consciousness. Exploration goes hand in hand with the learning process. Notice, I didn't even tell you that I would get you into the learning state. You get into it by default because you're not doing an exercise. Remember, exercises are simply repetitive routines that include certain moves or certain techniques that are done trying to achieve particular goals. Often they require a certain repetition of sets or certain revolutions or certain moves. And instead of that, we engage our bodies and our consciousness in the process of exploration. And when you're exploring, by default, you get into an altered state of consciousness. In this case, we're talking about a learning state. You are actually learning a great deal about yourself, about certain things about your own body that you didn't know before. And the fact that you enter the learning state now allows you to actually learn whatever lessons this particular situation in your life has presented you with. So when you stay in that state of consciousness associated with relaxation and flow, and focus your attention on the same issues at hand that caused you stress, now you can remember that these things are not problems. These are fantastic learning opportunities. Having these learning opportunities, which allow you to learn lessons, also means that you become grateful for having these experiences in your life. And what does gratitude do? Again, it's an expression of resonance, an expression that you feel happy that something happened. You may not feel particularly happy if something crappy happened in your life, but as long as it taught you an important lesson, at least you're grateful for having that lesson. So we're not trying to just convince ourselves that we should be happy. Instead, we take kind of backdoor approach. We learn whatever we can learn from our experiences, and then we no longer regard them as problems. The faster we shift our consciousness into the learning state, the quicker we recognize the learning potential of all the events that life presents to us. Therefore, we can do it right in the present moment, and that means we don't spend any time thinking that we have a problem. We immediately recognize that there is a lesson here. Let's get into the learning state. Let's start learning. That means you begin to live your life free of problems. It also applies to the past experiences. Whatever problems you experienced in the past that you haven't learned yet are likely to repeat themselves or to keep affecting you. Whether they keep recreated in a similar fashion, for example, like I was talking about cyclical crisis, or that may just simply have a residue of particular emotional energy that keeps affecting the way that you perceive things at the present time, and will keep affecting you in the future if you don't address these experiences, if you don't shift your perspective on them. So instead of the anger or frustration or sadness or anxiety that was associated with a past event, you have a different emotional response. Notice I'm talking about response, not a reaction. You're no longer reacting to what life presented to you, you're actually responding to it, becoming grateful for having this experience, and also utilizing all the lessons that life presented to you. Now, how powerful is that? It's amazingly powerful. So, to reiterate what you just learned, you just discovered for yourself a way to eliminate problems in your life. You no longer perceive things that you used to perceive as problems, or you could potentially perceive as problems, because you immediately recognize that they are lessons rather than problems, and you learn whatever lessons life presented to you. You enter the learning state of consciousness, and you practice getting into the learning state by observing how you can explore your own tensions. And when you explore your own tensions, guess what happens? You take charge of your own tensions, and thereby giving yourself the freedom of choice, whether to keep tension or to let it go. And those people who experience greater freedom of choice, by and large, are happier than those people who have no freedom. So, this was the first of the 2 dynamic meditation practices that I promised to offer to you today. Let's take a look at the second one. It actually has everything to do with the manifestation of your dreams. Now, it may sound almost too good to be true. A practice, a meditation that would literally empower you to manifest your dreams. Wow. If there was such practice, everybody would be practicing it by now, right? Well, remember, the stereotypes of thinking perpetuated by the media and social milieu that you live in. They're not particularly intelligent ways to function in our lives. So, what we do is we learn how to do things differently. Because if you want to have the same results, well, do the same thing that everybody else is doing, you'll be getting the same results they're getting. If you want to get different results, you got to do things differently. Let's see how we can explore the practice of dynamic meditation dedicated to connecting with energy that would help you manifest your dreams. First of all, you need to know what your dreams are. And most people tend to focus their attention on that which they don't want. They know very well that they don't want to be in pain, they don't want to have nasty arguments in their relationships, they don't want to be broke, they don't want to struggle and suffer. They know really well what they don't want. Focusing attention on what they don't want only contributes to the manifestation of those events. Because where attention goes, energy flows. If you focus your attention on that which you don't appreciate, don't want to experience, you literally are giving more power to it. Or you create more suffering and stress in the present moment. For example, one of my favorite metaphors. You go to a museum and there are different pieces of art on the walls, Chiral scrolls and paintings here and paintings there and all kinds of artifacts. Some of them you may resonate with better than others. For example, if you resonate with one particular piece of art, you would really feel more relaxed and more in the flow when you spend some time enjoying it. On the other hand, there may be some pieces of art that you can't stand, and you wish they weren't even there in that museum. Those that you don't resonate with wouldn't make sense to focus your attention on, right? You're not thinking about going to the museum for a field trip and spending all that time in the museum staring at those pieces of art that you don't like, don't appreciate, and wish they weren't there. Well, that's what most people tend to do in their daily lives. Their thinking is often skewed towards focusing the attention on that which they don't resonate with. Instead, we learn to focus our attention on things we do resonate with, we do appreciate, and by doing so, we actually experience greater sense of relaxation in the present moment, as well as contribute to the manifestation of those events in the future. Now, let's see how we can really dial into that energy. Notice that at the present moment you may not have access to the precise energy that you would need to have in order to manifest your dream. As a matter of fact, if you did, you would have been manifesting the dream and living the dream by now, probably. So the mere fact that there is still an aspiration or a dream that you want to manifest or live in your life means that there is a little bit of room for improvement, or in other words, there is some discrepancy between the current state of affairs and the dream state. What do I mean by that? In the current moment, you have a certain state of consciousness. And there is energy associated with that state of consciousness, with that way of being. The energy associated with the current way of being that you experience at the present moment is not necessarily the same as the energy that you would need to have if you were to experience that way of being that would contribute to manifestation of your dreams. What would be the way of being associated with manifestation of your dreams? Well, let's take a moment and just visualize. Connect with that dream. Remember, focusing your attention on that piece of art that you really resonate with, that you really appreciate, you feel grateful for. See if you can hold out two hands in front of you. I wonder which of your two hands will feel a greatest sense of connection with that energy associated with a dream state, with a way of being that you would need to experience in order to manifest your dream. You can imagine being able to see yourself from a fly-on-the-wall perspective at that point in your life when you're manifesting your dream. You can even use the previous visualization using that metaphor of a strip of film that you can look at, and you can go not only into the past but also into the future part of the movie about your life. Fast forward into the point in time when you actually manifest your dream. And now let's watch that episode. But let's watch it from the fly-on-the-wall perspective. Because the fly doesn't care about your appearance, it doesn't care about what you say or what other people think of you. It only cares about energy. And we want to connect and identify that energy that is associated with that way of being that you need to experience in order to manifest your dream. You can even imagine a small figure of yourself standing on the palm of the hand that feels more resonance with that energy. And imagine the energy associated with that way of being that would help you manifest your dreams. Surrounding that small figure, perhaps you can even identify a particular part of the body within that small image of yourself, standing on the palm of your hand. That part of the body in which this energy resides, or there is a certain concentration of the energy in that particular part of the body or energy center. You may gather as much of this energy associated with the dream state as you need on the palm of that hand. As if you're holding a bowl, you can imagine filling it up to the brims with that energy. You may notice some peculiar sensations in your hand associated with the feeling of energy in that particular part of your body. And then by way of contrast, let's invite the energy associated with the current state of affairs into the palm of the other hand. You may even imagine a small figure of yourself standing on the palm of the second hand, surrounded with energy associated with the current state of affairs, with the current way of being that you experience right now. And you can gather as much of the energy associated with the current way of being in the palm of the second hand, as if you're holding the second bowl that you can also fill up to the brims with the energy associated with the current state of affairs. And once you accomplish that, you actually end up holding two energy fields. One associated with the current state of affairs and the other one with the dream state. All you need to do now is to simply allow these two energies to connect with each other. You let them connect either directly between the palms of the hands or through the medium of your physical body, through your arms and shoulders and torso. Once they start connecting with each other, communication will begin to flow. They will actually start sharing whatever they can share with each other, as well as learning whatever they can learn from each other. Rest assured, there is a lot that they can share with each other, because there is some difference between these two energies, isn't there? They have a lot to learn from each other too, because they have access to different resources within your consciousness. You may notice some peculiar movements, whether it's a swaying motion of your whole body or smaller movements associated with the vibration or slight change in position of your hands. Allow these energies to move your hands spontaneously without trying to orchestrate this movement or direct it in any way. Simply let these energies move you as they continue connecting with each other and sharing whatever they need to share and learning whatever they need to learn. They may actually begin to move you a little bit more. You may start feeling peculiar sensations in your hands, perhaps fingers, perhaps the palms of your hands. There may be some movements that are happening in your arms, forearms, wrists, or fingers. For example, right now, I feel like that swaying motion back and forth that I was experiencing for a few seconds is transformed into a circular movement, clockwise. And both of my hands are now moving me. It may sound strange, but I'm not trying to move myself. I'm actually letting the energies that I connected with through my hands to animate my body. Now I also notice that my hands are no longer facing upwards. They're facing more towards each other, which begins to feel like there is some movement between the hands as the exchange intensifies. They really start finding some common ground. And it's amazing. It actually feels like there is almost like an electric arc between the two palms. And they also pulsing and moving in sync with each other. The synchronization of movements of the two energies in the right and left hands also means that they get in cahoots. They actually start collaborating with each other instead of polarizing and feeling that there's a huge discrepancy between them. And as soon as this collaboration begins to occur, you may feel there's a sigh of relief, or just simply your body begins to relax, because you're no longer experiencing this major discrepancy between your dream state and the current state. Let's continue this exploration further. Notice it's not an exercise, it's an exploration. It's a spontaneous manifestation of the energy dynamics that happens between your hands without you trying to move them in whatever way you think they might move or need to move. Instead, the energy knows exactly where it needs to flow. And as you allow some communication between these two energies to unfold, that's exactly what begins to happen spontaneously. So allow this movement to continue flowing even more. Now I really feel that the hands face each other precisely, and it's almost like I'm holding a big energy ball between my hands. It's no longer two separate energy fields. They have actually grew into a unified field of energy that integrated both the current state and the dream state. In fact, this integrated unified energy field now has the qualities of both. What does it mean? It means you are now experiencing the dream state in the current moment. In the present moment, the current state and the dream state are no longer separate. You're living your dream, my friend. And that's exactly what we were looking for. We were looking for ways to connect with the energy associated with manifestation of your dreams in the present moment. And we've just achieved that. As you're holding onto this energy field between your palms, you may still feel some pulsation or some movement or some other sensations, which is totally okay. But what we're looking for now is the way to anchor this energy in your body. Remember, there was some area in the body of that small figure of yourself that you held in the palm of your hand, imagining how you would need it to be in order to manifest the dreams. Where was that? That epicenter of this energy. Even if you don't know consciously, you can just trust your unconscious mind that will find the most perfect, most ideal location for this energy in your body. All you need to do is simply bring it into your body and let it flow wherever it needs to flow. You can simply inhale, fill your lungs with air as much as you can. Yawning is an excellent way to do that. And then whenever you exhale, create vacuum inside of you. And bring this energy into your body. You may visualize inhaling it into your lungs, or simply let it descend upon you, going wherever it needs to go, and finding the most appropriate place for it in your organism. For example, in my case, this energy flew right to my solar plexus. Great. Now I know where to find this energy that will help me manifest my dreams. I wonder which part of your body this energy goes into, so that it gets anchored there and allow you to find it whenever you need to tap into this energy resource. Remember where to find it? You can simply connect with that part of your body, or you can tap on it. You literally wake up this energy and invite it to occupy the driver's seat. Of course, there is more to this practice that I can share in a short context of our webinar today. I would love to continue working with you on this, and also to continue sharing other more advanced practices than this in the context of our Tai Chi coaching program. I will be delighted to continue working with you to discover more about this Tai Chi coaching program and to see how you can benefit from it. Please go to taichicoaching.com. In fact, you can also receive a special bonus just for participating in this event today, celebrating my receiving of the United States citizenship. I'm going to give you a bonus. If you've never downloaded the meditation CD called Qidao Initiation, I will offer it to you as a download with my compliments. In addition to this bonus, I also have to tell you that the first month of the Tai Chi coaching program will be just $1 for you. That's right. Well, the other months will be $99, but the first month, only one. So you can do a test drive, experiment, explore, and enjoy our program that will consist of a series of regular teleseminars and webinars. I will also continue sending you more materials and invite you to a workshop that we will also have in Portland, Oregon at the end of this program. But most importantly, I would love to continue working with you right away. Please go to taichicoaching.com and register for this program now. You will never be the same. I look forward to taking this journey with you.